this is in my mind, like, this is the bromance movie.
Totally. It's the ultimate one, I think. I mean, it's
Yeah.
literally called "I Love You, Man."
I love you, dude. I love you, Bro Montana. I love you, Holmes. I love you, Broseph Quibbles. I love you, Machacha. I love you, Tico Brohe. Okay. Okay.
It's funny, like, I was doing a little bit of research, and I gotta tell you, Googling bromance movie brings up just the worst results. Like, it essentially just takes bromance and it's like, oh, any movie where there's two guys that like each other, that's a bromance movie. Like, Shawshank Redemption showed up in this.
I mean, it is about friendship, but that movie's about hope. It's not about fucking bromance, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's definitely not that. Top Gun popped up. I'm like, nope, that's
That is sexual tension. That is all that that is between Iceman and Maverick. That is all that that is. It is not bromance. They literally hate each other the whole movie. At the end, they respect each other, but they just wanna fuck is what I think.
And then, I mean, one that I thought was funny is Lord of the Rings. Like,
I
ki
could see that too. I guess, like, if I mean,
not a
they are
comedy
all
though.
men in the group. There's a fellowship. Technically, it's some, like, a nine-way bromance, I guess,
I
but
guess.
not at all about the same thing. I think that Google just goes, "Hey, all these guys are in the main cast, so this must be a bromance." And, like,
Yeah,
sometimes that'll work, like The Hangover or something, but
yeah. So, so I think there's a fair way to kinda differentiate this. So if it's gonna be a comedy, at least, if that's one thing, then you get into bromance movies, and then I call, like, buddy movies. And buddy movies can include, like road trip stuff, like The Hangover or Due Date.
love Due Date. I just have
Due
to say,
Due
shout out
Date
to Due Date.
Due Date is great. Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Surprisingly, like, I did not expect that to be a buddy comedy going into it, and that was just fucking great. I want 10 more buddy comedies with Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, I'm there for it. Also, like, any Chris Farley movie is
Mhm.
is a buddy comedy, and they're all amazing. And then most of them involve road trips.
Yes, and they're all great. Yeah, you're right. And he just I mean, it's like I guess how do you differentiate then bromance from buddies?
So here's how I differentiate it. The major plot, like the major point of the movie, the major plot point has to focus on the relationship between the two main characters, like the two main guys. So, like, those other ones that we listed, the point of those movies is like for them to get somewhere and then they become friends along the way, kind of thing, you know.
I gotcha.
So this is how we kind of separate it a little bit. So, like, for example, I Love You, Man, the entire movie, nothing really happens. Like, it's just focused on their friendship and developing
Literally.
that. Like, things
Yeah.
happen around that, but the point of the movie is that.
Yeah.
Another example, uh, I know you won't like this, but the Banshees of Inisherin.
Ed
Banshee
Sheeran?
Ed Sheeran, Banshees of Ed Sheeran.
Yeah. I guess I haven't seen that, but yeah, it does but it sounds like the opposite of a bromance. Did they come back together
Well,
at the end?
they
I
they
don't care
kind
about
they kind
spoilers.
of they break up, but it's the impact of their relationship. I just thought that was funny when it popped out. I was like, I kind of get it. Um, I actually think Step Brothers is a total bromance.
Oh, 100%.
Like,
One of the
it's
best.
insane,
Yeah,
but like
but it is. That's
it's
all it
all
is. It's
about
about their
them.
relationship. Yep,
Uh,
totally.
Also, I think on the woman side of this, Bridesmaids.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
we don't even know anything about the actual husband of the person getting married
No,
in
they're
that.
not
Like,
even characters, yeah. All the men are barely the characters. I have one that I would wanna run by you, but I think it would count, but I'm not sure, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Would you count that?
the only reason I wouldn't count it is just because it's not a comedy, but like, it is a total bromance.
But it's hilarious. You
Yes,
don't think that
yes.
movie's a comedy? I think it is.
Oh, it's hilarious, but it's hilarious in a Quentin Tarantino kind of
Sure,
way.
sure. It's his version of a bromance, I guess we could say,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
What
Uh,
about Ted?
that was the last one.
You have
Is
Ted?
I have Ted on there.
It's a teddy bear, but it counts. It's all
Yeah,
about his relationship with the bear, and I fucking love Ted. That's one of
Ted
my
is great.
favorite comedies of all time.
But yeah,
Oh, wait,
there's
I got one more though.
okay.
I thought you were gonna have this. I'm very surprised you didn't. Superbad. It is literally all
I
about their friendship.
Yeah, I would consider Superbad a
Fuck yeah.
bromance, yeah.
One of the best, honestly. And then another one from the female perspective would be Booksmart,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Because that's
Great
also,
call.
people say it's like the female super bad, and I totally agree. But yeah,
Yeah,
two other ones that are really focused on the friendship between the two main characters.
yeah.
I guess this would be more romance, but Bros that just came out with Billy Eichner,
Yeah,
that's more of a romance.
that's a romance.
Just in the name, I had to throw it out there. Technically, two bros in love could be considered bromance.
Brokeback Mountain came up on the list. I'm like, "That's a romance.
Yeah, that's just
What are we
great.
doing here?"
I know, yeah, I was able to make a joke with bros just because of the name, but
Yeah.
Brokeback, come on, we all know that's fucking romantic to the bones.
Oh, yeah.
This is a good category, though, like, I kinda wanna watch all of these movies, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Including actually Pineapple Express would probably be up there too.
I would put Pineapple Express in the buddy movie category just
Yeah, I
'cause
guess that's true.
so much, like, stuff is happening.
Yeah, it's just James Franco, his, like, love for Seth Rogen in general in most movies always just comes across as, like, slightly gay, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's, like, slightly really, like I feel like he really is in love with him or something,
He
so
crosses the platonic line.
yeah, that he's the reason that I get the romance angle, which I'm like, I'm not mad about it, but
Well, we'll keep this list, and, whenever we wanna come back for a classic, we
a
can,
palate cleanser.
yeah. There is one movie that I thought really fit into a lot of categories of being a bromance, also being just like a full-on buddy comedy and, road trip movie. It's Dumb and Dumber.
I'm surprised actually you didn't include that.
I think I have to. I mean,
It's about their friendship,
it's
really, it's
all
about
about
both
their
of them.
friendship, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that should be like I mean, here's a good question for you. How would you rank I Love You Man compared to Dumb and Dumber as the ultimate bromance movie?
Uh, I mean, as you know, Dumb and Dumber is my favorite comedy movie of all time. So,
Yes. It's a
like,
tough call.
it's gonna be up there for me. But I do think that I Love You Man is like it's the purest bromance movie.
Yeah, it is. It's bromantic, if you will.
Like, there's nothing insane happening that adds to the plot. It's just these two guys trying to figure out how to become friends.
Yeah, how to make friends as a man. It's the whole idea of male friendship is hilarious to me, and, like, this movie really just represents it perfectly, and how, like, it is funny that this is really, like, the only movie strictly about that.
Yeah, yeah, the plot is right there, and it's also so easily and relatable. Like, it is funny that there hasn't really been another kind of movie
Yeah,
in this
I
topic.
would think that this would start a fucking trend, man.
Yeah, but all right, let's just go ahead and get into I Love You Man.
Would you meet me at Muscle Beach at like, I don't know, half an hour? Muscle Beach, half an hour. I will see you there, or I will see you on another time. That was very confusing. I don't know if you're gonna come or not. No, I'll be there. I'll be there. All right, I'll see you. I'll see you then, bud. All right. Latest on the Menji.
All right, I Love You Man. This movie came out in 2009, directed by Mr. John Hamburg, who, interestingly, I definitely thought this movie was a Judd Apatow movie.
I was about to say the exact same thing.
It's not, and this guy has not really directed anything other than this movie that I really love. He did direct a couple years prior, Along Came Polly,
I love Along Came Polly.
which is a great one. But yeah, like it's it's really interesting. This movie I feel like is uh is really loved by a lot of people.
Mhm.
It didn't do I mean it did okay at the box office. It kind of made its money back, but like it wasn't super successful, but it everyone that I know has seen this movie and loves this movie. So it must have just got a real following afterwards
Mhm.
because it's amazing. And
It's
so
amazing.
the main stars are Paul Rudd and Jason Segel. This is a couple years after I forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yep, which was
Um,
the last collaboration between these 2. They were also had like a brief scene together in Knocked Up, and
Yeah.
I just
And
want these guys in every movie together. They're
right.
incredible.
And then Paul Rudd, this was a couple years after Role Models that he did with
Mhm.
Sean William Scott.
I
So
love that movie too.
it seems like these two got together after really two of their biggest movies and did this. And so it is surprising that this movie wasn't successful enough, I guess, in terms to get a sequel. Because it seems like there is a sequel there. I'm glad they didn't do one, but
I'd
it's
be
just
interested. I'd be
interesting.
down. Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, it's just wonderful. Or as we quote all the time, the most quoted thing on this podcast, it's just delightful.
Just delightful. And you know what? The movie Chocolat is delightful.
Whenever I watch that scene, I always think of you and I talking about Midsummer. You're like, it's Midsummer. You mean Midsummer?
Yeah, and it's like, I know it sounds pretentious to say Midsommar, but that's the fucking name of the movie, all right? But I mean, just talking about that, this movie is insane. Like, just rewatching it again. Maybe I just haven't rewatched it a lot recently, but I was like, man, I quote this movie on the reg, which I feel like is something he also says in there. I don't know. But like, I also went through that whole phase of just shortening my words, and
Yeah.
I still say totes. Totes my goats.
Totes my goats. That is from this movie.
Yeah, it's so good. I've said that since this movie. Laters on the Menjay. I say that all the time too. And it's really good whenever people actually pick up on it. Because a lot of times they don't. They're like, what the fuck are you saying?
It it the whole like bit of Paul Rudd being nervous about talking like a normal person and like having a normal friend, which he's never has in this, prior to this movie. Him getting so nervous and like trying to sound cool is maybe one of the best like ongoing bits in a movie
It's
ever
so
because
good.
it's everything.
Fife, you know what to do. Hey, Peter, it's Sidney Klaven. No, that's not right. Oh. Uh, Sydney, it's Peter Klaven. I met you last week at an open house, and
It's what's so great about it is because he's like acting flustered and awkward the way you would around like somebody that you really liked or like wanted to date, and it's his friend, so it's like a whole new experience for him. It's literally that's why it's bromance. It's literally taking like the whole thing of like courting someone in a relationship and like that whole awkward stage of dating and turning it into friends like meeting, because I guess especially for guys, I feel like what guys make a lot of friends when they're older? I feel like you
Not
kind of make friends with your younger, and then it's like, the friends who stick around. Like it's not really, you know what I mean? That's
Oh
what's
yeah. Yeah. I think this movie captures perfectly how hard it is. Yeah, for guys when they're older to make, I'm not gonna say necessarily make friends, but like make meaningful friendships. Like we
yeah.
have a ton of acquaintances, like people that we work with or
Mhm.
whoever. Like, but yeah, like it's hard to really like, have a friendship outside of you see each other at work every day or like
Yeah.
that stuff. And it's the way that they do this movie is just it's really kind of brilliant. And I love everything about Andy Samberg like laying out the rules of like how to pick up guys because like I mean first off, and Andy Samberg is
Incredible.
a revelation in this movie. This is also where we get Andy Samberg and J.K. Simmons, them working together,
Always a good time.
and then years later we get the brilliance of Palm Springs. But
Like the whole dinner sequence when they're like, he's like, "Who's your best friends?" It's like J.K. Simmons is like Hank Mardukas.
Hank Mardukas.
Yeah, and Robbie. He's like, "Robbie's your best friend?"
a what? A mandate. Okay, you know what I mean? No. By that I mean casual lunch or after work drinks, okay? No dinner and no movies. You're not taking these boys to see The Devil Wears Prada. Oh, God, I love that movie.
His character is like, yeah, don't do this because then they'll think that you want to date them. Like he's like helping
No
him being
dinner.
like, yeah, no dinner. Like
Got to
just
ask him on a mandate.
yeah. After work drinks, right? Or like
Yeah.
something casual or like lunch, like
Yeah.
nothing, no dinner dates and all that stuff. And I love that because it's like there is specific rules, and he's also, interestingly enough, in this movie, I love that his character is gay, but going after all the straight guys that he like trains at the gym. He's like, it's just I like the challenge. I
Yeah.
was like, I love that so much. So it's just really funny. And then I think the reason that scene or that is so important to the movie is that it really sets up the perfect scene with Thomas Lennon later
Oh
from
my
Reno
god,
911.
I love Thomas Lennon in this I love Thomas Lennon in almost anything, but I love
Anything,
him
yeah.
in this movie.
He's so fucking good. And it's funny because like you don't get the vibe that like they're on a date, even though it's dinner and he's like all nervous, like, oh God, Robbie told me not to do that. And it's like they have a great dinner. I feel like they even like both check out the waitress
Yeah,
and they're like, oh,
yeah,
she's so hot. And then afterwards at the end when he's like it's also Paul Rudd does kind of set himself up by
yeah,
saying like, "It's so nice to go out with someone I can actually talk to. I'm
yeah,
just, so used to being going on with jerks." So it's like that does come across as like not like a friend thing.
yeah.
But then yeah, the kiss is like I love it because it's like the hesitation from Paul Rudd and then like Thomas Lennon like senses it, but then like just goes for it even harder. It's so good.
And then that leads to my favorite line from Rashida Jones in this whole movie. Like Rashida Jones is great in this movie. She's funny. Um, Up until this point, like I'd only seen her on Parks and Rec, so like I never heard her
The
swear.
Office too.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Um, but I never like heard her swear before. And so when she kisses him after the kiss, and she's like, "Your mouth tastes like an ashtray," and he's like, "Sorry, I went out to dinner with this guy, and we were just talking, having a good time, and then he kissed me." And then Rashida's just like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like,
Yeah, wait,
it's
what?
like, "Oh, you are a good swearer, Rashida
Yeah, she should do it more often.
Jones."
I liked her in this movie. I think she's great. She's perfectly happy. I mean, I enjoy her character. I think she's funny. I love her friends
Oh, her
too.
friends are great.
So good. And then her friend has one of my favorite lines, which is why is everything always about you? And she's like, because I'm single. And I was just like, that is true. That is so true. I love that. I mean, there's a million quotes in this, but
Oh yeah.
everyone's really great. The supporting people. I have to shout out while we're here, John Favreau,
Oh yeah.
because
He's
I
such a
was like,
dick.
he's so good. He's such an asshole.
I told you we were early.
Would you shut up?
It's supposed to be
The minute we get in, you have to start bitching
You
already.
told me it was a drop by.
You
This
know
isn't
what?
a drop
This is
by.
not a drop by. It's a damn engagement party. What is
Can I
wrong
have
with
a
you?
Belvedere on the
You're
rocks, please?
such an asshole. Could you just shut up and
And something
not
with
talk to
sour
me
mix in it for
today?
her?
I'm sorry they didn't cater this to you and your buddies.
He's like, all right, well, I promised her we'd be gone after appetizers. It's like, sit the fuck down. And he's just yelling at his wife who's like smoking hot. He's like, get the fuck out of the house.
The scene when they have the wedding dinner,
Mm-hmm.
or the rehearsal dinner, and Paul Rudd's talking to him, and John Favreau has the toothpick in his mouth, and he just like pulls it all the way into his mouth to take a drink, and then like pulls it back out all with his tongue. I was like, "You're really cool, man. I wish I could do that."
Literally thought like when we were watching this the other night, Nolan said the exact same thing. He was like, wow, did you see that? He put it like all the way in his mouth just for that and then whipped it back out. And I was like, I've seen people do that. And I'm like, I mean, you gotta be really used to having a fucking toothpick in your mouth to be able to do that shit. It is an instant cool guy thing.
Oh yeah. So a funny little piece of trivia that I saw, and I was just like, I would love to see this version just because I can't imagine it. You know who was originally selected for the role of Robbie? That went to Andy Samberg. You know who was originally selected?
No.
Fucking John Bernthal.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't imagine it, and I want to see it because I love John Bernthal so much.
I think that would be incredible. I mean, I love Andy Samberg, don't get me wrong,
Oh yeah.
and he's great. But like would totally love that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would buy him and Paul Rudd as brothers though.
Yeah,
Like him,
that's a good call.
I don't know if I'd be like this guy must be from a different family or something. He's like half or like not even they're like step brothers or something. Like there would need to be something. But that's fucking crazy. I had no idea about that.
And then Thomas Lennon,
Mhm.
he originally auditioned for Tevin.
Oh, he would be good at that too. That guy, though, that
That
they
guy's
have is
great.
perfect.
She's a squirter.
Ew. So gross. That is so disgusting. See, and that's the thing is like there's so like at least from the guys that I've been friends with, you included, I feel like men are just so like they're so weird, but they're so low maintenance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like you could not talk to them for like a year, and then you guys just talk, and it's like no big deal. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, hey, whatever, and it's like not even like you guys would get into deep conversation. It's just like, oh yeah, hey, how's it going? But like no worries. A girl, it's like, why haven't you called me? What the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Men are just so like it's really got to be hard to like or like awkward to like for them like trying to be so proactive as a friend in this movie. I feel like
Yeah.
Paul Rudd like it's like sometimes that's why it's so awkward. It's cuz guys are normally like it's just chill, man, whatever.
Well, this movie really should just be like, a notice to guys that like being vulnerable is important. Like
Yeah, it's a good thing.
and like I've been best friends with the same guys like since junior high and high school and like love
Mhm.
the guys to death. We see each other all the time, but there's definitely periods of time where like we'll hang out and talk and we will never end up like actually talking about anything that's going on in our lives. We talk about
Yeah.
stuff that's going on in the world or like little things, but there's like the gap between vulnerability in some spots and
That's a great
and
point cuz that's really
that's
what
the
it
hard
is.
that's the hard part is like, for you to really develop meaningful friendships, early on especially, there has to be that vulnerability and Paul Rudd doesn't really do that until he meets Sydney, and Sydney really pulls it out of him.
Yeah, because he's all about the honesty.
So
But
how's
that's
the
what's
sex?
yeah, that's that I was just gonna say that whole scene is like I think one of the biggest differentiators like between male and female friendships is that like women talk to each other about literally everything. Like
Hmm.
even like all the gory details of all the sex that you've ever had with a woman, every one of her friends knows all the details. Like that's just how it is.
Hmm.
And it's, like, fun, you know? And you
Yeah.
do feel like you're close because it's, like, kind of a personal thing. But guys, I feel like, never talk about that unless they're like, "Oh, I got laid. Oh, nice. Cool." Like, you know what I mean? It's not as much of, like or, like, not asking about your feelings about it or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, women get into every little fucking thing. And so it's just so funny that, like I love that Sydney, AKA I think I just have to call him Jason Segel,
Yeah.
but he just really is perfect to, like, pull that out of, like, Paul Rudd and try to make him slowly more comfortable because he's so sweet and he's trying so hard, but, like, once he can finally relax, it's like he's almost even funnier.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's switch. Let's talk about Paul Rudd and Jason Segel because they are everything.
Yeah, I know. They really are everything. And which reminds me, I think I sent you the link, but do you remember that interview that they did for this movie to promote it with
Oh
that
yeah.
guy and
Rotten Tomatoes interview.
just goes totally off the rails. You can tell like Jason Segel at least for sure is high. I don't
Yeah.
know about Paul Rudd, but he might be. They both seem like they're high as fuck. However, they're not like I mean the poor guy giving the interview is just trying his best and it's so funny because like they're just on a roll doing this weird shit like just totally going off the walls and he's just trying to keep it together but it's also like I feel like this interview ended up probably being good for him, even though he didn't get any of the fucking questions that he had
Yeah.
answered, you know?
It's so funny because yeah, him and Paul Rudd are just all over the place. Like,
Just fucking like they're just I mean, you could tell why they were so good in this movie because they just have such good chemistry
yeah,
anytime.
they have a whole like part of their interview where they start listing off movies and then they take the last word from the last movie and then name another
And
movie.
it's like, yeah, it's almost like an improv exercise, this whole fucking interview. Cause they're like, I mean, then they start talking about like, oh, like did you have any bromances growing up? And then like fucking Jason Segel starts that thing with like,
I have my same best friend since I was 12 years old. He's awesome and imaginary.
His name is Gideon,
Yeah, he's great. He rides a unicorn.
and he visits you in your dreams.
This has gone horribly awry. Yes, I actually do have the same best friend from when I was 12 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
And his name's not Gideon.
I like it that you're really laughing, and you can't stop.
Yeah, there's a joke, and then they just roll with it, and then Gideon becomes almost like another character in the interview. It's like, oh no, careful, Gideon will come back, and it's like so fucking funny.
Now you're Gideon.
Yeah.
Oh, don't say that. Gideon?
Gideon. He didn't mean it, Gideon. Gideon, back on your horse.
You see, I'm honestly, I'm seeing dollar signs here. I think we need to develop the Gideon movie. I think there's a real future.
It's half animated, half live action.
Absolutely half CG.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking good. And then Paul Rudd does that crazy face that Jason Segel said he used to do like off camera when they
Yeah.
were doing this movie. And I just love that, like, as much fun as this movie is, it sounds like they had just as much fun filming it. You can
Oh,
really tell.
Yeah, I don't think anything was accomplished in that interview
No.
other than just like these guys love each other.
It made me want to see the movie though again.
They have so much fun together.
They really do.
I think this movie, I think they are the entire reason for why this movie's so good, and that's not that crazy to say. It's their movie, but I'm pretty confident that like they are improving most of this movie.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure Paul Rudd must be improving some of these weird things that he says, like,
You got it, Jobin. So, what? Nothing.
Oh, what'd you say?
I don't know. You nicknamed me Pistol, and I just called you Jobin. It means nothing. I'm drunk.
just weird shit that you're like, I'm sure that this just fucking came to them. Like, it's kind of like anything with like Jonah Hill when you're like, I can just tell that guy's just fucking improving like crazy. And he's so fucking funny. It's like these two guys are just equally as funny and they're just unstoppable together. I can't get enough of them.
Oh, I'm pretty confident that the whole slap at the bass was just like one thing that that Paul Rudd said, and then he just started saying it over and over again. Like he says it so many times. Like he starts with, "Hey, yeah, I slapped some bass in high school," and then it like gets to him just being like,
Slap at that bass, man. I slap at that bass.
Please don't do that.
Slap at the bass.
Please,
Slap at the bass.
for the sake of our relationship.
Slap at that
Please
bass.
stop.
Honestly, I feel like he does that in so many movies. Like like one of my favorite ones, and if you haven't seen the outtakes, look it up for this movie. Is the one he did with Jennifer Aniston.
"Oh, I know you."
And it was the one where they go stay at the cult. I forget what the fuck the movie's called. But and when they're gonna like, it's like a free community like hippie cult, and like they're gonna sleep with other people, and so he's like psyching himself up in the
Mhm.
mirror. And the outtakes are even more incredible. But like they put part of it in the movie, and he just starts talking to himself, and he's like,
You gonna take it? You gonna take that dick? You gonna take that dick, huh? I'm gonna pop off a piece of my dick. Oh yeah, I'm fixing to fuck you.
I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put my dick in. And like he just goes off, and it's so fucking, I cry laugh every time I watch that. It's like Paul Rudd is just a fucking treasure. He was just voted sexiest man alive because he is. He's so much sexier. I mean, he's attractive. I mean, for sure, obviously, right? He's beautiful, but he's so fucking funny. He's so
Yeah.
charming. It's just incredible. I love him so much.
I love the scene, and he's definitely improving it. But the scene where he shows Rashida Jones the Rush song, and he's
Mhm.
just like, "Slap at the bass,
Yeah.
slap at the bass,
Slap
slap
at
at the bass." she's just laughing.
Then she's like, please stop. Just stop. And it's like he just keeps going. I just love that, like the little carryover bit throughout the movie too, that like every impression he does sounds like a leprechaun or like Irish. Like,
Yeah.
why do I sound Irish? It's like slap at the bass. Big time. It's so fucking good. I just he's incredible. I am so happy for him that he's doing like a ton of shit, and he's obviously like, I think Jason Segel should, I mean, I know he's kind of doing his own things and like kind of different stuff, but like I miss him in comedy. I really
Uh,
do. I know he's kind of doing more of like serious parts and stuff, but man, is he fucking funny.
he's so funny. You need to see, you need to watch Shrinking, that
Is that good?
that show on Apple Plus.
I wasn't sure if it was a show or a movie.
It's a show. It's awesome. It's maybe my favorite uh, Harrison Ford performance.
Really?
I'm surprised. It's
High
awesome.
praise.
It's great.
Well, I just miss him in comedies. Is that show funny?
Oh yeah, it's funny,
Okay.
but it's also deep. It's the same guy who does Scrubs and Ted
Oh.
Lasso. So
Jesus, that guy
it's
does every fucking show. What the
he-
fuck?
and they're all amazing.
How does he do it?
He's a treasure. But yeah, like them together are just they're just so perfect. Like they really encapsulate the the we like first talking and then you talk more and then you talk a lot and then you just like share all of your weirdness.
Like when they're
And
calling
like
each other about their poops, and he's like, "Was it discolored?" It's like gross. Where he's like recapping the set list of the show that they just went to.
it's
It's like it's a bit much.
it's funny like they essentially recreate like what a lot of people's experience of like building friendships when you're in school or something
Yeah.
because you see each other all the time but they're doing it as adults like in their 30s or whatever.
It's similar to Step Brothers when like they become like, did we just become best friends and like you want to
Yep.
do karate in the basement and like weird stuff like that. It's like very much similar to that when you like and sometimes that would be with friends where you don't like each other at first and then you're like, "Oh my god, no wonder why we didn't like each other because we're so alike."
Yeah.
Like, there is that thing too. So, I think it's just there's a lot of things that's a big I think role for men in a lot of comedies is the man child. That's like the big thing.
Yeah,
Whether it's, like, fully like a man-child, like, I mean,
like
maybe
Step
Adam
Brothers
yeah, like
is a
Step Brothers
full
or like
on.
Adam Sandler did this a lot,
Yeah,
like the whole man-child thing, but it's like it's funny that Paul Rudd is, like, kind of that way only because he just doesn't have friends, so he's
yeah,
kind of, like, not mature in that way, but, like and then, obviously Jason Segel is not totally mature in this movie, but he seems to have more of a shit together, but they're just a nice compliment that way.
yeah. It's kind of like two different areas of you have one person who didn't have a lot of friends, and then you have a guy who does have friends, but a lot of their friends are
He doesn't have
are
relationships with
are
women as
yeah they're
much.
they're moving on, they're having kids, and he's like, I don't want to have a relationship. This
Yeah.
is my nightmare.
This is
Like,
I say that all the time too. I
another
think
one.
about that. I'm like, that would be me in any apocalypse situation. This is my nightmare. I've been worrying about this for fucking ever. I also always love to say when I can, I will see you there or I will see you on another time. Like I'm very
uh,
confused. I don't know if you're gonna show
are
up
you
or not.
are you gonna be there? Yeah, I'll be there.
It's just great. This movie is so fucking much fun.
Another thing I didn't realize until just watching it the other day, how often people yell "shut the fuck up" in this movie, but every time they do it is hilarious.
Hilarious.
Like
Here we
when
go, Galaxy. The
shut the
Elmo.
fuck up, and then like when they're jamming and the guy bangs on the door, shut the fuck up.
Up. So fucking good. There's so many of those. It's very true. And this movie's just fucking it's hilarious, but it is actually pretty sweet. And like I
It
actually
is.
feel like the like relationships between Paul Rudd and like Rashida Jones, like I buy it. I
Yeah,
like their relationship. It's sweet.
yeah.
And I like his relationship with Jason Segel, as funny as it is. I do really I love their whole they really are perfect for each other. It's
It
like it's a romance.
it feels very genuine. Like it feels like they're not, oh, we got to play people who don't have friends. Like it feels like
Yeah.
they just are actually just becoming best friends
Yeah,
in this
exactly.
whole thing.
You're
Like
like, I just buy this. They're friends in real life. I'm like, I can tell that they really enjoy being around each other. It's like, I mean, as much as I love their one scene in Knocked Up, and then in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I do love how Paul Rudd never remembers him, and he's like, "Aren't you that guy from who works at Kaiser Permanente?" It's like, what? They get that, and he's like, "When life gives you lemons, just say fuck the lemons and bail." Like, there's just some really good moments, but it's kind of the opposite of this movie.
yeah.
Whereas I feel like this movie just fits a little bit better for me.
Well, and this is one of the only movies that I can think of besides Knocked Up where Jason Segel doesn't really play like a sad character. Like in a lot of movies, he kind of plays like a sad sack.
Or a
And
guy
in
who
this,
doesn't yeah, who doesn't have his shit together. He's going through some shit.
yeah, but like in this one, he's like really confident. And like
Yeah.
when he goes to see Peter at the office, and he's like, "Oh, what's your name? Helen? That was my mother's name." She's like, "Oh, was it?" He's like, "I don't know. Was it?" And then just like
He
walks
just
away.
walks away. It's so good. And, like, the fact that I mean, when you talk about confidence, I think about, like, why the fuck would anyone take on the Hulk? And it's like
Yeah.
he tries to fight the Hulk. He's like, "All right, Hulk." And it's like, "Stop calling me Hulk." And that's just that whole sequence is so great. But yeah, he does come on really strong in this movie as like a very confident character. And you're right. That's a great point. I didn't really think about how he doesn't play that very often.
Well, and he
He's
has
always kind of in a moment of distress when he's in other movies.
well, and I think one of my favorite lines in this whole movie is when they're taking the dog out to crap, and he doesn't pick up the crap, and then that first person, so he's like, "Hey, pick up your dog shit," and then he just turns around, "You mind your own fuckhole."
Yeah, just start
Ah! Ah!
he's like, if you just act crazy, people will fucking leave you alone. It's so good.
Uh,
So good, man. This
just
movie is just I mean, I think maybe this is another thing to talk about,
yeah,
but like compared to other movies from this time, this movie holds up like really, really well today.
yeah. I think this movie has aged beautifully. So this movie came out in 2009, and like the mid 2000s to the 2010s, there's a lot of incredible movies, but there's also like a good chunk of movies that like wouldn't be made today, like
Yeah. Have some
or
questionable scenes that just
or
don't
like
quite hold up.
yeah, or there's some stuff that there's very controversial things in there. It doesn't I don't know if it means they're a bad movie or not, but like a prime example everyone says nowadays is like White Chicks. Like
Yes.
no one would make that movie today, or like Tropic Thunder. No one would make
Although
that movie.
but that's the thing is that they're satirizing and they are aware of it, right? So
I
it's okay.
I know. I'm fully there with you.
Yeah, but I
But
know
just
what you mean. It's just what I get annoyed with is like I think like Jim Jeffries said this best was like you can't use like here's where we are today, right? But like
yeah,
when this was made, we were way back here. So you
yeah,
can't measure it against today's standards. You have to measure it against that like you can't be judging something
yeah,
that came out at a different time, right? I know this was only 2009, but like if you think about it, we've really come a long way.
yeah,
But, like, I'm just thinking of, like, the scene of like, I love 40-Year-Old Virgin, I think that movie still holds up really well, but I do think, like, nowadays, like, like, it is just a little weird watching the, "You know how I know you're gay" scene, like, it's
yeah,
funny, but, like, it's also, like, the whole point of it is just making fun of, like, "Oh, you're gay."
yeah.
And it was, like, that was in a lot of movies back then, was like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah,
haha, you're gay." And now it's like, well, that's not funny, that's not something to make a joke about, like, it hits weird when you're watching it, it's not
yeah,
like, "Oh, this movie's canceled," but, like, this movie just didn't it has a gay character and, like, there's a lot of stuff going on that could have been, like I mean, it could have been really controversial if you
yeah.
watched it now, but I feel like they skated the line perfectly.
Yeah, this movie, I feel like, or maybe just I've never heard anyone talk about it, but like I feel like this movie ages really great. There's nothing in it that is like, oh, that's weird. Oh, I don't
Mhm.
know. It's kind of like like Wedding Crashers, like amazing, funny movie. The premise of it is a little weird. It's just like a bunch of these guys that are just tricking women and lying to them to sleep with them, but like,
Yeah, literally, and then there's the whole subplot of, like, Rachel McAdams' like, brother being gay, and it's, like, this whole disappointment in the family, and then he's, like, super into Vince Vaughn and, like, attacks him in the night
yeah,
too, and you're like, "Okay, this is, like, weird though," like, it's all a joke about him being gay, like, that's the whole joke, right?
yeah,
Whereas and then again, yeah, that whole movie. However, like, I think we can all agree, like, it's not really doing a ton of harm. However, it just is a little bit weird to watch nowadays.
yeah. But yeah, like this movie is like yeah, the any joke that they make, I guess you could say like at the expense of one of the gay characters, like they bring it back. Like
Mhm.
Thomas Lennon, you know,
So
he ends
good.
up being in the wedding party, and like
Yeah,
he's also one of the funniest characters of the whole movie. You're a whore, Peter.
exactly, and I love that. It's like, again, there's no jokes of like, "Haha, you're gay," or like, "You
Yeah.
seem gay." It's not like that. It's more just like Paul Rudd trying to navigate the really tricky line between friendship and romance with
Yeah.
guys. And he's like, in that scene, understandably, he kind of sends off the wrong signals.
Yeah.
So like I get it. And it's not like it's on Thomas Lennon's character. It is funny later, but like you said, he comes back in the wedding party. I mean, all the guys make a comeback in the wedding party, which I love.
Yeah.
But yeah, his is really great. And when they're talking about chocolat, he's like, just beautiful film.
Then all the bridesmaids are like, "Oh, I love
I
that
love that
movie."
movie. Yeah, it's so good.
And for the record, I saw Chocolat. Just delightful. It is, right?
Chocolat? What the fuck is that?
I have no idea.
It's a beautiful movie.
Have you seen that movie? You and Sarah should make a summer salad and watch it, and you would just have a delightful night, I think.
We'll watch it because I don't think I have seen that movie, and Sarah
Oh,
hasn't seen it, so we'll watch it, and then I'll just text you. It was just delightful.
it is. It really is.
All right, so before we wrap up, I want to know what's your favorite scene in this movie? The whole movie is great, but like what's the one that like sticks out to you? You go to YouTube and rewatch.
I don't know why, and it's the same scene that I saw in like an ad for HBO on Instagram that got me to rewatch this movie. Was like the first phone call that Paul Rudd makes when he's calling Jason Segel, and he's like, he has to leave a voicemail, which is always awkward, and he's already super awkward and uncomfortable, and he just nails it. It's so good. It goes on for like a little while, and that's what's so great about it. Is it like you're just like, it's like The Office, like how sometimes there would be just some scenes that you're like, I can't, like it's so cringeworthy. It has that vibe, but it's like you're laughing the entire time because it's just so fucking good. And then at the end when he's like, fuck. Like, after he hangs out, he's like, I totally fucked that up. But it's just so good, like just pure improv, I'm sure. And I mean, he even gets like, he's like, what was I saying? Like he gets distracted in the middle of it. It's just perfection.
You know it's going to be a bad voicemail when he starts off and he's like, "Hey Peter, this is Sydney."
Or no,
I,
he's like,
I
yeah.
mean, "Hi Sydney, this is Peter."
He goes, hey Peter, this is Sidney Klaven. And it's like, wait a minute, that just added his name to your last name. Like, I forgot about that. That's like the perfect opener. You're like, oh my God, he's off to the races. And then it just gets worse. And it's so good. It's like, I'm so shocked. The whole movie, I think, after that scene, I'm so shocked that Sydney called him back.
Yeah.
I'd be like, this guy's a psychotic person. Or he's like super into me, right? I don't know.
It's great. That's even funnier nowadays just because no one makes phone calls.
It's
So
even
like
worse. Yeah.
just the idea of being vulnerable, calling to ask someone out on a mandate, and like I have to actually call you, not text you. Oh God.
Yep, I know. It's true. That's just I think that it's like a perfect representation of the movie. So, what's your
Yeah.
favorite?
So, and I think this is where the actual movie starts. It's the open house when Sydney
Yep.
and Paul meet.
Yep.
Like up until then, like they're establishing some of the side characters. They're establishing Paul Rudd's, lack of friends and all that.
All of his bad dates, if you will.
Yeah, and then this one, then they meet at this open house, and it's hysterical. Like,
And then he's giving him the play-by-play. I thought you'd also love this because I remember like you went through that whole phase where you're like obsessed with body language and you were like, oh,
yeah,
you could really read it all. And like that's like one of like the main characteristics of Jason Segel's character in this movie. So he's like giving him the play-by-play on that couple that's like walking through and he's like, oh yeah, they haven't had sex. Well, he's clearly holding in a fart. And it's like,
he does appear to be clenching.
it's so good. And at the end, he's like, Paul Rudd's like, that was like a play-by-play.
That's a fart, motherfucker. Oh God. That's a fucking fart. Oh my God. Look at him, crop dusting across your open house. It's a disgrace. He farted in my open house. He sure did.
You know what, guy? I like it, but I'm thinking it might be a little bit small.
Totally, and it smells like fart.
It's just so good. So good.
It's great. It's just like in one scene, we've learned everything about Sydney, everything that we've been learning about Peter, and then in one scene we learn everything about Sydney. Like when
Yeah.
he's like, just I have no intention of buying this house. I like to go to open houses for the free food and also to find attractive divorcees.
Yeah. It's just perfect. And it's like you're as like charmed by him as Paul Rudd is.
Yeah.
You're like, I would be just as awkward calling him the next day because like that was so great.
Yeah.
They're just they're so cute together and like they're so funny and they play off each other in all these different characters throughout these other movies that they've done and throughout their careers. I just want them to keep doing it. I
Yeah.
want let's get like a 20-year later sequel for I Love You Man, right? Like where are these guys
I'm
at now?
I am there for it.
Is
That
it
would
for their
be
kids being friends? I don't know. Just saying.
that'd be great.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We out here.